Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, and it's happening. A massive secession from one of the nation's most woke states looks like it's actually happening. You're not going to want to miss this. This is Mike McCarter. A few years ago, Mike put forward an idea that seemed to resonate with a lot of rural residents in the eastern counties of Oregon. Let's leave behind the far-left woke policies of imploding drug-infested Antifa-run cities like Portland and redraw our boundaries around a great conservative state like Idaho. And so an organization called Move Oregon's Border put forward the idea of holding a number of referenda throughout Oregon's far more conservative counties to secede from Oregon and join up with Idaho. On May 18th, 2021, 5 counties held a referendum to secede, and to the shock of many, all 5 counties voted to secede from Oregon. Some of the measures passed by over 60% of the vote. Since then, Mike's dream has absolutely exploded in popularity. Thus far, upwards of 11 counties in the state of Oregon have passed referendums to join their neighboring red state, Idaho, which is now being dubbed the Greater Idaho Movement. Several more counties are scheduled to hold similar votes, and all told, nearly 50% of Oregon's counties are prepared to leave and join up with Idaho. If this secession were actually implemented, that would mean that 3/4 of the landmass of the state of Oregon would be emancipated from the imploding city of Portland, which in turn would make Idaho the 3rd largest state in the union in terms of landmass. Now, the logic for this is rather simple. Back in November, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek won re-election by nearly 4 points, beating out Republican Christine Drazan. Now, you would think, okay, that's a pretty close race. 4 points, that's respectable. But take a look at the Oregon governor election results map. It's virtually all red. The Democrat, Tina Kotek, won re-election despite having lost 29 of Oregon's 36 counties. More than half of those counties, nearly 20 in all, voted against the Democrat by a margin of nearly 40 to 50 points. In fact, her 68,000 vote margin of victory came exclusively from the 192,000 margin of victory in a single county, Multnomah County, which of course contains the imploding failed city of Portland. If Multnomah County were excluded, the Republican would have won the race by 10 points. This is the recipe for intense disenfranchisement among the vast majority of Oregon's rural counties who don't want to be living under the political conditions imposed on them by a single cosmopolitan county. It's like forcing Alabama to live under a San Francisco regime. And so the rural folks are rebelling, and it seems to be working. The Idaho legislature just voted in favor of a bill that would move the Oregon and Idaho border westward to create a greater Idaho. The bill authorizes Idaho legislatures to present a proposal to Oregon politicians about relocating the border to the Cascade Mountain Range, which would end up incorporating over 60% of Oregon's landmass into Idaho. So the Idaho legislature looks like they're ready to do this. So what about Oregon's legislature? Are they prepared to allow so much of their state to secede? Well, the answer to that is going to shock you. How much money do you think you would save in interest payments if you could pay off your mortgage in 5 to 7 years without any change in your current income? You heard that right, 5 to 7 years. Well, amazing is just a click away. You've got to click on the link below and visit Replace Your Mortgage, featuring the one and only Michael Lush. Michael is showing patriots by the thousands how you can build your own personal parallel economy so you're no longer dependent on woke businesses without worrying about your financial future. Check him out. Click on that link below and book a free consultation call with Michael. He's one of us. He's a patriot, and he's here to serve you. This is Matt McCall, spokesperson for the Greater Idaho Movement, talking about a bill that was just introduced in the Oregon Senate that would indeed begin talks with the Idaho legislature on adjusting the border.
We just spoke with Senate President Rob Wagner, and he says this bill probably will not go anywhere, but it does indicate that the people in the western part of the state do need to talk to the folks in the eastern part of the state and take their concerns seriously. So what do you say about that reaction to your bill?
Well, we would hope so. Our bill, the process for moving a border any border can be moved. Like I mentioned, it's an imaginary line. A border is a tool for the betterment of people. So any border can be moved. And in fact, Oregon and Washington slightly moved their border in 1958. It needed to be shored up where exactly it was in the Columbia River. So the process is for two states to get together, and it's called an interstate compact, and they decide where the border is, doesn't make sense. It would make more sense to put it here. Those two states, if they agree, then they write up an interstate compact, a contract about where that would go and all the details that would go with that. It would go to the U.S. Congress and get signed off. So where we're at now, we've been spending the last 2 years going to Eastern Oregon counties and asking voters directly, do you want your elected leaders to look into this? And what we're seeing is when we actually ask voters, do you want to look into moving the border? Do you want to look into changing state level governance? Voters are saying yes, and they're saying yes pretty overwhelmingly. Our votes out here in Eastern Oregon aren't close. They're not 51-49. We're winning 61-39 and 59-41. People want this solution to be looked at by our leaders. So Senator Linthicum has introduced a bill in the state Senate, and that bill is basically asking the Idaho legislature to begin talks. And we have a bill in the Idaho legislature that's ready to be introduced as well, inviting Oregon to begin talks. So we would ask Senate President Wagner to move that bill forward. The people in Eastern Oregon are asking our elected leaders to look at what it would need to change the border and change their state governance. And we would ask Senate President Wagner to move that bill forward. Let's have this conversation. Let's hear the people out and advocate for what they want.
So there you have it. I mean, this thing really is happening. There is real momentum to change Oregon's borders, largely because they've become functionally obsolete. Functional obsolescence occurs when something simply no longer serves the function for which it was originally designed. I mean, take, for example, the way a bridge can become functionally obsolete when it becomes too narrow, too weak to support the types of new vehicles people are driving now. Functional obsolescence isn't just relevant for bridges or building codes for that matter. It can also apply to state borders that no longer represent the values and interests of their residents. And that's precisely why what's happening in Oregon is in fact spreading throughout the nation. And again, this is actually happening. From the Mid-Atlantic to the Pacific Northwest, rural counties in some of the bluest of blue states have taken steps to redraw state lines in order to either join up with a neighboring red state or to form their own new state. In California, San Bernardino County, one of their largest counties, 2 million people, has directed local officials to study the possibility of secession from their state. Eastern Washington counties are considering comparable measures. And perhaps most radically of them all, the Republican Party of Texas recently passed a resolution in their party platform that calls for a referendum vote on whether to secede from the United States in a so-called Texit referendum named after Brexit. In fact, USA Today fairly recently noted that the U.S. is experiencing nothing less than what they're calling secession fever, and for obvious reasons. They were well articulated by the Greater Idaho movement there. More and more Americans refuse to live under regimes that don't just ignore their values, but actively insult them, spit on them. And they've had it. They want their values of faith, family, and freedom honored and revered. And if imploding cities like Portland want to embrace socially suicidal woke values, then go right ahead. No one's stopping you. But if more and more counties want to remove themselves from those woke values, then there should be no one stopping them as well. Interstate secession is a win-win. And that's why we may indeed be seeing an extraordinary political makeover surging throughout our nation in the very near future. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You'll definitely want to check out my latest video on Trump announcing a massive ballot harvesting plan that's ready to storm 2024. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.